Okay, a warm welcome to all of you. It's really a pleasure to be here amongst all of you. It's my first time to Blossoms for a very, very special reason. And couldn't have been a better moment than for me, who's been 1 year in Bangalore, to come here on this rainy day for this very, very special occasion. I know it takes a lot of lot of effort in Bangalore to make it on time to any event. Today is a special day for many of us because many of us are bringing in Ganesh Chaturthi. The rains are definitely bringing in the Ganesha. So thank you all of you for taking that time out to come here and celebrate literature, to come here and celebrate the miracle of storytelling, and most importantly, to come here and celebrate the author of the book here. So thank you so much, and a big applause to all of you, family and friends out here who've taken that time out. It's a special occasion for multiple reasons. It's a special occasion because it's my closest friend's first book as an author. It's momentous because, one special fact, this is his first book launch in India. He's done that in other countries, but for the first time he's doing it in India, that too in Bangalore, which actually has a very, very special mention in the book. And I'm sure as we kind of proceed with the book launch, you will get to know a little bit more about it. You want to come? Okay, cool. Okay, before we kind of start this book launch, let me tell you this is the first time I'm ever kind of hosting a book launch, and I was reflecting on the significance of this charming tradition called book launches, right? All of you are here, I'm sure, are avid book lovers or are Sandy fans, that's why you are here. But I think what books does to us is to actually give us a lot of perspective, a lot of explorations, and a lot of amalgamation of culture. Actually, this book launch and the tradition actually is a culmination of a tireless effort, passion, creativity, and emotion that kind of gets poured into a book by the author. So thank you so much once again for coming here to celebrate that passion, and all of that goes into building of a book. I think a warm welcome before we kind of move ahead. Before I kind of move on, just a quick show of hands. How many of us are here for the first time for a book launch? Wow, so this is really, really going to be even me. Great. So I think I must tell you that when I was researching about how to do a book launch, there is a full structure, serious structure in terms of how we do book launches. But I think we're going to make it a little bit more fun and interactive as we go along. Shifting gears, let's just spotlight onto the star of the evening. And the star of the evening is the book. With an intriguing title, artfully designed cover, and choiceful words, Gin-Soaked Boy is an attempt to decode depression, a very elusive mood disorder. According to WHO, nearly 10% of world's population is affected by mental health issues, and an alarming 2/3 of people who need treatment never seek help from a health professional due to stigma and discrimination. I'm an HR professional, and I can tell you that how deep-rooted this illness is. Day in and day out, we experience, observe variety of such cases, variety of instances of symptoms which kind of come along. And the worst and the most saddening thing of all of this is there is no acceptance to this. Even if there is acceptance, there is no motivation, there is no support to kind of move ahead and take a step forward towards recognizing that. So this book aims to leave the reader with an insight into this world and intervene either for themselves or for anyone that may be displaying any one of the 12 symptoms mentioned across the 12 chapters of the book. Gin-Soaked Boy, based on a true story, follows one boy's journey before succumbing to the condition. It serves as an important read for anyone looking for an understanding of depression and its consequences. While one life couldn't be saved, if the signs were read at the right time and interventions implemented, hopefully another could be. I personally love the storytelling structure of the book, where each chapter is made up of 2 acts. The first act covers the protagonist in its childhood, where he is nothing short of a prodigy. And the second act draws a sharp polarization to this as he begins to display signs of depression. How many of you actually read the book? Yay! Amazing! Keep your questions ready for the author. Because that's what I'm going to do right now. You're going to listen directly from the horse's mouth because we are lucky today as we have the privilege of having with us the remarkable author of the book, Sandeep Mathew. Sandy, as we lovingly call him, is a sales and marketing leader at Unilever, where he has worked for 15 years across India, Europe and Africa. His purpose is to script highs, where he is a chronic state of healthy dissatisfaction, to seek out highlight moments for himself and his team. Good for him, don't know about the team, and then write about them. He is an avid traveler and a foodie and blogs about culture and culinary delight across 50 plus countries. During the pandemic, when people around the world lost some of their loved ones to COVID, Sandy lost his best friend to depression. Sandy noticed that unlike physical ailments, a mental illness like depression very gradually and inconspicuously evaporates over time. In the case of his best friend, there were 12 symptoms of depression displayed over 12 years of his life. And the book is Sandeep's attempt at preventing another loss of life to depression. So guys, without further ado, with a huge round of applause, please join me in welcoming the author of Gin Soaked Boy, Sandeep Mathew.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here, taking time in a rainy soaked day to come for Gin Soaked Boy. Thank you.
Okay, Sandy, so I have read the book over a course of multiple months because I have a little daughter, and she actually recognized the book cover as soon as she came here, and she said, "Mama, you have read this book." So of course the book cover is amazing. Any insight on the book cover?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that the designer couldn't be here. It's my lovely cousin sister. Thankfully, her parents are here. Her brother is also somewhere around there. My entire family, all these guys are like stunning artists, and this cousin of mine is really, really good. So I had a couple of conversations with her where I told her about the story and things like that, and she came up with this design which I think is really unique. And she tried explaining to me some of the artistic elements behind it. I really couldn't follow. I was like, okay, I think it's good. but yeah, the entire thing was within the family, so I'm happy about that.
Cool. So I mentioned that one of the things I loved about the book was the structure and the format that you followed. I have never read something like that before. And Amish, when he's writing, he talks about this hyperlink writing format and all. Is there a name to what you've done?
I don't know, it could be called Christopher Nolan or something. I don't know. I just wanted to play with time, and I also realized that it had a specific significance for this, for the topic I was writing about. Because when you talk about depression, it's not something that happens overnight. And we hear of all these celebrities who talk about depression, and we think that okay, one bad movie and you're depressed the next day. It's not as simple as that. It happens over a very long period of time. And typically there are events that take place in the childhood, and that is what that was my attempt when I started writing it. So I want to talk about some events in the childhood and how that kind of manifests when you grow up in much darker and sometimes in ways that are so bad that it goes to a point of no return. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, like a past and a present, and it ended up taking its shape in a story that looked like it was playing with time.
Okay, I think pivoting to a little bit of a deeper, darker kind of reflection on the book, because while it's been written in, it has fun elements to it, but there is a deeper and a darker reality behind that. So what was the most surprising or revealing aspect of depression that you discovered during your research and writing process that you believe people should be aware of?
Yeah, actually, the other reason that I really wrote the book was when I was doing the research on it, I realized there isn't much literature on this topic for India. So if you pick up any book on depression, it talks about it from a very Western context. And all these books tend to miss out on some of the nuances that we experience here in India. And that was another reason to write it, because I thought I need to tell this story about some of the struggles that we go through in this country and the kind of pressures society puts on us over here. And that was one of the insights. The depression is not really that well understood, especially in an Indian context. And I'm hoping this book spreads some light in that area.
And I think I echo to that because, like I was saying, I mean, as organizations nowadays, in the space of well-being, there are all the elite organizations are offering psychological support, counseling, etc., etc. But there are hardly any people actually taking that support, right?
Yeah.
When you were kind of doing the research, and because you're not staying in India and you're staying somewhere else outside of India, do you see there are nuances to that?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question because I now stay in Netherlands. I've been there for the last 6 years, and I realized there is so much more acceptance of issues like this. I mean, so much as just coming up to work and saying that you're burnt out has very different connotations between India and maybe Netherlands or the western part of the world. Over here, it almost looks like a failure. It looks like you're not fit to do your work, and people tend to look down upon that. But over there, it's not the case at all. In fact, there's a structured process by companies, by the government, to really handle people who feel they're burnt out. And that's just one example of being burnt out. There could be other manifestations of mental illness. And there's a lot more acceptance and way of handling of such situations, which I think is a bit lacking in India. We're getting there. We're getting to be more aware of these things. But as of now, there's still a bit of stigma around.
So we're going to be alternating questions between me and the audience. So keep your questions handy, and this is your moment to ask Sandeep anything awkward, anything embarrassing, or anything that comes to your mind.
Only book related, okay?
All right. So there are a lot of memories of Bangalore in the book, right? Anything special that you want to call out?
Yeah, I mean, like when I was writing it, it was total nostalgic experience for me because I went way back into my childhood, and one of my very close school friends over here, known her I think for 25 years now, and like her, I spoke to a lot of my friends because my memory is now fading, so I needed to talk to a lot of them to try and get some of those stories and memories back. So it was a trip, a nostalgic trip for me. So there were a lot of things in Bangalore that kept coming up. This bookstore even actually. I mean, this was something that I was visited when I was really, really young, and I'm so happy that it's still around in this age and giving us this opportunity to do this. But there are lots of things of Bangalore that I totally enjoy. And for those who haven't read the book, which I think is still majority of this audience, I would encourage you to go and read the book to probably get to know a bit more of that.
So for the audience, for them to get excited about the book, why don't you throw some light on the title? Because if you kind of just read the title, you may get a very different audience to pick up that book.
Yeah. Oh, the title, I mean, I think the title took as much time as writing that book. It took a long time to come up with this title, but at the end of the day, it's a very famous song, actually. And it happened to be a song that my friends really, really liked when we were growing up, way back then. And it just came up in one of those conversations I was having with a couple of friends. We were just talking about songs we like, and this song came up. And it just suddenly hit me that it actually makes so much sense in the book, because while you mentioned that there are 12 symptoms to depression, only one of them is alcoholism. And it's one of those most common symptoms actually, because when we see someone who's an alcoholic, it could be because they're facing some mental issues. But there are many other symptoms as well, which is what I've tried writing in the book. But because alcoholism is probably the most easiest to understand symptom, I thought that's what the title can be on. So there's a bit of reference to that. The book cover is also has a bit of reference to it, and hence the name. And yes, it's a catchy song as well.
Very one linked and a very coincidental fact when I actually saw the title of the book. Just a couple of weeks back, I was with a friend who was going through depression and counseling, and my friend was told by the doctor to avoid gin because gin actually aggravates depression.
Okay.
So, yeah, just
that's
serendipity, right?
Yeah, that's totally by chance.
Great. Any questions from the audience? Or you're calling up the questions? Right.
You mentioned that there's
Wait, let's give you a mic.
Yeah. You mentioned that there's a marked difference in the way depression is perceived and treated between the West and India. Is that because of culture from whatever you've learned? Or is it because as a society we refuse to accept that there exists an ailment like that?
Probably both. I mean, maybe we're not able to accept it probably because of a bit of a culture. I mean, like Asians, right? When in a work situation over there, we tend to be people who are extremely hardworking, and for us it's almost like work is the most important thing. Over there, it's usually not the case. And people don't matter. It doesn't matter much for them. I mean, even if they've been asked to go, if they've been let out by the company, they don't take it as hard as the way we do. So there's just culturally a very different mindset over there, where just working and trying to provide for your family is not the most important thing for them. So there might be a bit of culture to it. But having said that, I mean, there could be many other reasons why that's the case. And the good thing is, I do see a lot of improvements. Like at least from our organization, both of us used to work in HUL at one point of time together, and we know that at least that company has started to take a lot of effort in handling this space, in terms of identifying it early, giving it the right treatment. Because like any ailment, the entire thing about this is to catch it as early as possible. So people are getting there, but it's still a little slow, and I would assume that is because of a bit of the way we are, a bit of culture.
Great. So for the first person asking the question, does he get a signed copy of your book?
Yeah, for sure.
We just signed it.
Great.
All right.
Okay. So, throughout the book, it felt like the protagonist wasn't addressing the fact that he had depression, and was perhaps not accepting of the fact that he was not okay, or maybe ignorant. Ignorance might be the better word. What advice would you offer to the readers who are in the same boat?
Yeah, I think seeking help, but a lot of times, I mean, accepting that there is a problem is the biggest hurdle, right? They always say that, and once you've accepted there's a problem, the next few steps follow easily, but accepting is always difficult. Therefore, the only thing I could tell people is, if you are going through something which is a little off from what you are normally, or if you notice somebody else, and in fact that is more important, because people who go through these situations are not able to handle it on their own and are not able to accept it by themselves, like you rightly pointed out. And typically you need people close to them to kind of make an intervention and kind of push them to the right places to seek help. And that's what I would probably tell everyone over here, and that's the whole purpose of the book. If you notice yourselves, or even more so somebody else, who's showing some signs of going off track, or any changes in their regular behavior, I think it's always worth. I mean, even if you err on the wrong side, it is fine in this case. But I think you should just make that step to try and identify if there is a problem. At least from personal experience, I can say I didn't do it, and that is why I ended up writing the book, because one of my closest friends went through that, and I didn't take it as seriously as I should have. And I think many of us do that. We tend to just dismiss these things off as whatever irresponsible behavior, which we shouldn't. I think we should take these things a lot more serious.
So I think thanks for being so candid, because it takes a lot to say I couldn't be there for my friend, and this is the moral of the story in a way, to say how can we help everyone else. So talk us through writing of this book, right? I mean, what were the creative challenges or writer's block? I know you also wrote this book when you had a little one. It wouldn't have been an easy space to be in, dabbling with a great news and happiness in your life with your child, and at the same time going through what happened with your friends. So talk us about this, balance that you were able to strike, or maybe not.
Yeah, this is one thing that people don't understand, and my wife absolutely hates, because I have a 2.5-year-old and I wrote the book when he was born. But actually, it's a bit counterintuitive. It helped me. Once Leo, my son, was born, I had 6 weeks of paternity, and he would just keep me awake in the night. So because I was anyway up, I used to just keep thinking, and in the daytime there was nothing I could do more than just feeding him, and then he would just sleep next to me. So that's when I would type. So actually the first 6 weeks was when I wrote most of the content. So it kind of helped me in a way, that having a kid and having that time to write. But in terms of the process of a book, the initial draft is what doesn't take, it doesn't really take much time. Everything else that follows is what takes a lot more time, which is working with a publisher and converting your initial draft into something that others will read. So in my case, I probably wrote the draft in the first maybe 3-4 months. At least like a crude draft. And then it literally took the next 3 years to convert it into the book. So that process of refining not just your language, but the structure, and it's a continuous back and forth. And yeah, that's part of the process which I realized. I didn't know it's going to be that difficult, but that's what took time. And the smaller the thing is, like I said, the title, just the cover, you tend to think these things take lesser time, but actually those smaller things end up taking a lot more time. And the big part of it, which is the content of the book, actually takes lesser time.
Great, I'll pause and any questions from the audience at this stage?
First of all, Sandeep, congratulations. So don't look so nervous. I'm not going to spill anything.
so scared already.
So I think having known Sandeep for so many years, he has been creating content before content creation was a thing, right? So he was like the father of content creation. So it's not surprising that he wrote this book and the quality of it and the stories. He's always been kind of spreading stories spreading stories is the wrong way, right? That's the wrong thing to say. So saying his stories and storytelling for the longest time, right? So I think for a lot of us, this book helped with closure. So thanks for writing the book. It actually helped answer a lot of unanswered questions for having lost our friend. So I think the one question I do have for him, and I've been asking him, is what percentage is of real life and what percent is fictitious?
99% is fictitious.
No way,
You
really?
should be validating that answer.
Yeah, I know. There's some parts of it I was not part of, so I'm kind of curious about that. I won't say 99%.
But
Are
majority
you
is.
saying this because they're like all your aunts and uncles in the audience?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think everyone who has questions come talk to me after this.
Maybe we should just shift the questions there. Anyway, you.
It's not a question. It's not a question. It's not a question. It's only a comment.
Okay.
You told about the ignorance. Ignorance is a bliss. Ignorance is a bliss, but not ignoring.
Yeah, that's well said. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
And one more thing. All art is artless. All art is artless. All art is artless. All art should be artless. It should be natural.
All artists are artists.
Artless. All the art should be artless. It should be quite natural. Another meaning is artless means natural.
Thank you.
You said you switch, yes.
So I wanted to ask, in your research, did you come across any societal or something that systematically puts people into depression, or contributing factors that prevail in our societal systemic, root?
So one of the things that I did notice, like I said earlier, that a lot of this happens at a very young age, and I think one of them is probably family. The kind of family structure here in India and the kind of expectations or pressures that some of us felt when we were growing up. I think that certain elements of it can end up causing long-term mental disorders. I think that's probably the case everywhere in the world. I'm sure people face it even in the Western world. But it's probably not as much as, or in ways that probably we experience here in India. So that was one thing I know.
This is not so much about the book, Sandy. Given that it's part of it is based on a true story, and you mentioned that acceptance is one big hurdle. On the opposite side, people, friends, and family. You've been part of that friendship with your friend, and you said you thought these were irresponsible behavior. Did at any point in time you think these are signs of illness, and you hesitated or ignored it by looking at it as irresponsibility? So how hard or how easy it is to identify these and then actually talk to that person to accept it?
Yeah, actually that's a very good question. Very good statement, because you're right, it worked both ways. Because in my case, while I did realize did notice. Some of them are very apparent, right? It's very in your face. But maybe I'm just making an excuse by saying it was irresponsible. Maybe the reality was that I didn't have the time for it. And I think that tends to be the case most often. I think we just make excuses and externalize these things. While in reality, I was just caught up in my own world. I was very busy with my work and so many things, and I just said, okay, he's being irresponsible. Which I think, and I'm glad you pointed it out, because I think sometimes we need to be the bigger person and actually step up and say that, I mean, fine, I know I'm busy, but I need to do this, and I have to make this intervention. And even if it's wrong, great. I mean, then nothing has happened. But just in case you identified a real issue, you probably save someone's life. So I think it's worth taking that step and not hiding behind a shadow and saying I have my own life to worry about. But thanks for saying that. I mean, I think you caught me on that.
Actually, I had a different thought to the question. I was more whether it's difficult to reach out to that person and says that you have this illness.
Yeah.
I was not referring to the time part. I'm sure we all go through that problem. I wanted to get your perspective of how difficult it is to reach out to that person and tell him that you're mentally.
I got your question now, and I think in cases of mental illnesses, you're absolutely right. This is far more tougher. People do not want to accept this. So no matter how much you kind of try to tell that person that maybe something is wrong, try to seek help. Usually people who have issues around mental illness don't take that step. So you're right about that. So you actually need to try a lot more harder. You need to push people a lot more, because unlike a physical ailment is not visible, right? You need to really help that person identify what the issue is and then seek help. So yeah, that's another good point.
Yeah, hi Sandy. So I know you love sharing life lessons. The one that you gave me I didn't follow. Don't get mad. I did, right? So I still remember that vividly. But while writing this entire book, this journey that you went through, what are some of the life lessons you learned about, say, depression or how to lead life in general?
Oh, okay. I mean, I've always lived by the principle that life is honestly a gift. I mean, make the most of it. Absolutely, thoroughly enjoy it. No matter how much life puts you down, it's honestly worth enjoying. So that's, I don't know if it's a life lesson. It's just the way I live, and I try to make the most of whatever opportunity that comes my way. So that's only one thing I could think of. Maybe a couple of gins, and maybe I'll think of a few more.
Hi. Okay. So I just want to ask, like when you gather up with friends and all of that, do you think you pick this up as a topic to talk?
Actually, good point. I mean, whether we talk about issues like this,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you're right. We don't. That's the
Isn't
point.
that something that you have to?
Yeah. That's again a very good point you're making. You're right, because in fact, I actually stray away from topics like this, and I think many of us are guilty of doing that, right? We don't want to get into such heavy topics, especially when you're with your friends. You want to just have fun, not end up wasting or whatever, spending that little time that you have with them on topics like this. So you're right.
Maybe that's a lesson to learn.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
a few gins down, maybe that's something you don't have to talk about when you're.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, not just hide behind, right?
Yes, you're right. Thanks.
Why do I read a
See,
deeper
that-
meaning coming from her?
So like I said, my family is all filled with really smart people. So.
So, the 12 chapters that you have in the book, few of the symptoms are, people will read and read like, yeah, obvious ones, like alcoholism we spoke about, getting into a shell. In your own experience, what was that one symptom which you felt even only on hindsight that was a symptom, but actually it wasn't?
Very good one actually. So there was one symptom where this character, the protagonist, would constantly switch jobs. Okay, and to all of us, we all looked at it as something positive, because we thought, okay, he's moving from one great opportunity to another, and he's doing so well in life. While it was actually completely the opposite. He was actually moving jobs because he was not comfortable anywhere. He had issues. He had issues with himself, with people around, and when it would reach a point of no return, he would quit and move to another job. And I think, yeah, so this was something in hindsight. And that's what I mean. So there are a lot of these things that you tend to look at it and either ignore or sometimes mistake it as something positive, while it needn't be the case. And that's why I said earlier, I mean, any change in behavior or any, slight displacement from the norm should be investigated. We shouldn't just let it go. And it's worthwhile spending that time for our close ones.
Any more questions from the audience?
Okay.
All right. So one last. Okay, great.
No. You have to ask
Comment.
Auntie.
Comment.
Ah.
Yeah, my mom's read 3/4 of the book. So.
Did you ever think your son will be an author?
No, that part I didn't think. But he used to write when he was child. Some stories that he used to tell me. Lot of stories like that. And I never thought that he would be write like this and become an author. It's really commendable.
She was one of the reasons why I started writing, because she would get me these free diaries from office and encourage me to write, and I used to keep a journal ever since I was really young. So even without knowing it, that's the kind of positive influence.
Yeah, I used to give him that cut from the releases every Saturday and give it read, in particular when he was child.
That actually was one of my questions. That of course the protagonist, your friend, was the main reason why you kind of wrote this
I
book. But
forgot that name, which the newspaper one. Forgot that particular name which is every Saturday it will come.
Crossword.
It speaks mind. Speaking tree. Correct. That he used to collect it and he used to read it to us to take it a point exercise and read it.
do you read his handwriting?
It is very difficult. to read his handwriting.
That's why he had to type it. So moving to Sandy, you as an author. So since child, I'm hearing that you've been writing, you've been probably storytelling. Did you discover yourself in this process as your style of the content that you like, or maybe your style as an author? Did you kind of have any aha moment there?
I think this is why you're such a good host. I've never been asked this. But that's actually true, because I think I figured I liked doing this. Okay. Yeah, I think I realized this is probably something I like doing, and maybe I'll find something in this as I move forward as well in the space of storytelling. So you're right, in a way I think I kind of discovered this bit about myself as well. So thanks for picking that.
And I think the last question, which everybody would have on their mind, very cliched, but I think we would definitely want to know what's next. And can we expect to read more of your work soon?
I would definitely like to write one more, but I don't think it's going to be anytime soon because this was a real, drainer of energy and time. And I think the next one will probably happen many years later. If there is some inspiration, something to write about, I think I'll do it, but not anytime soon.
Let's get you some motivation from the audience. Do you want to read more of what Sandeep Mathew has to write?
Yes.
Stories which he says after 2 drinks of gin.
Great. Thank you everyone for taking out this time. Thanks Sandy for squeezing this book launch in your hectic schedule. And I think we can all gather here for one group picture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Okay.
Great.
Thank you everyone. And while we just come up, I wanted to just thank Parul for doing this absolutely fantastic job as a first ever book launch host. It's a little bit for me. But thank you for this, and thank all of you all for taking the time, on this rainy day to make it over here.
Okay, great.
We do it here?
Yes, yeah, we'll all.
Why don't you read some excerpts?
Yeah, I'm sorry actually. Yeah. No, we
What
can
did
do
you
that.
read?
Sorry. I actually, in the fun of all the questions, forgot that. But on special demand, we'll get Sandeep to read what he's written. So I know I have these pages already folded.
It's just a small one, okay, so I'm not going to take too much of your time. But the book, the way I've written it is, I've written some parts as the protagonist's own thoughts. And some of them are in poetry format, so one of them is a poem. So I'm going to read that. Okay, so he says, pull my eyes out so that I can't see, and find troubles to devour me. Whisper in my ear the sounds of a beautiful beach, and paint the stars to be within my reach. Help me sprout wings and help me explore your sky, to be finally free and make the gods wish they were I. They say gods help those who help themselves, so I too will try. I will sober up, I will grow up, I will finally try to be a better human being. But my sweet Lord, in case that doesn't work, therefore paragraph 1.